Hey everyone, I hope you guys are doing well. You guys know me, I love talking about older phones and just older technology as a whole, and I really want to start reviewing, it's not even a start, I've been reviewing for years the older iPhones, and as we progress more and more, we find out that the newer iPhones that used to be new tend to get older and cheaper as well, and I cannot believe the iPhone XR is pretty much going to be 2 years old this year. It doesn't even feel like time is literally just flying, and it's crazier that the iPhone X is about to be 3 years old this year, and I figured I might as well compare them. On Amazon right now, they're actually very, very similar in price. So the iPhone XR was, it did come out later than the iPhone X, but it was also supposed to be a budget-friendly phone where the iPhone X was the main flagship at the time. Right now on Amazon, you can pick up an iPhone X for about $400, where the iPhone XR is about $435, so a little bit of difference between them, about a $35 difference. The iPhone XR is the more expensive one right now in 2020, and the price point is really one of the things that have changed the most besides the software. That's probably one of the crazier differences between them, seeing that depreciation. Now the iPhone X has been able to keep it, most of its value, for the most part, since, it's depreciating at a level that's kind of consistent. The iPhone XR also depreciated consistently, so one didn't really drop in price way more than we expected. But if you want to pick up an iPhone X or the iPhone XR for the prices I just listed, you guys can check out the first two links in the description. They'll take you to Amazon. You can get them from there and help support the channel at the same time. But looking on the front, this is where we see pretty much the main difference. So the iPhone X had a 5.8-inch Super Retina OLED display. It is 1125 by 2436, and it was the first time we saw a notch on a phone, and a lot of people didn't like it at the time, but now we've grown into it, and basically all phones have some sort of notch, and now we're kind of getting into a world where a lot of notches are kind of going away. But this phone for sure, it was crazy at the time. First iPhone with the OLED display, and when you look at it, you can tell there's a lot of premiumness to it, a lot of quality to it, and the iPhone XR took the same design language and pretty much built on top of that, and the iPhone XR has a 6.1-inch Liquid Retina IPS panel, and that resolution is 828 by 1792. Now, the one thing to keep in mind between these is that the iPhone XR's display just isn't as good of quality as the iPhone X, but the iPhone XR's display is still good quality. And before that phone came out, I think, me included, we hated on it and everything, but now we kind of realize how important the iPhone XR is. I really feel like it's one of the more important iPhones that came out. Apple is still selling it in the Apple stores for $5.99 for a reason, and I'll definitely tell you for sure, if it's between these two phones, I definitely do think the iPhone XR means better, it means well, but the iPhone X panel definitely is the better one for sure between them, no question about it. On the bottom, they both have lightning ports. On the back, glass backs, which is really cool, but you can see that we have a little bit of a difference in the camera sensors. So the iPhone X has a dual camera setup, the iPhone XR has a single camera setup, and I'll kind of get into more of the details in a minute, but like I've stated before, I'm always kind of hesitant to recommend phones with one single camera sensor, but I'll talk about that in a second. But in terms of the outside, they're very similar. The iPhone XR is a little bit bigger, but I feel like the iPhone X just feels a bit more premium in my opinion. I don't think one feels way more premium, but I definitely do think the iPhone X, if you're feeling them both without a case, I think the iPhone X will probably do you much better in the long run than the iPhone XR in my opinion. But again, different people like different things, but both phones are almost the same, but definitely the iPhone X I think has a better quality for sure. They both have IP certification, IP67 dust and water resistance, and that really pretty much covers it up there. Now hitting on the software, the iPhone X came out with iOS 11.1.1 and it is upgradable right now to iOS 13.3. The iPhone XR started off with iOS 12 and is also upgradable to iOS 13.3. Now in terms of the software, technically speaking, the iPhone XR should be lasting longer than the iPhone X, but as I've stated before, and there's no way to verify this, I truly believe that the iPhone X might actually last as long as the iPhone XS. And like I've stated before, there's really no way to verify this 100%, but the ways I've seen it before and the ways I've seen it done, because the iPhone X didn't start exactly with iOS 11, that really makes me think that the iPhone XR might actually extend just as long as the iPhone X and vice versa, because the iPhone X didn't get those full versions, and because there's a lot of similarities between the iPhone X and the XR, that truly does make me believe that the iPhone X might actually last as long as the XR. Right now, we're still kind of too early in its life cycle to tell. The iPhone X, even though it's 3 years old, it still has about at least a version, or it still has 2 versions of iOS left, so I guess we'll wait and see what happens. But if I had to say it, I do kind of believe that the iPhone X will probably last as long as the iPhone XR. If not, it's going to be very, very close anyway. But the biggest thing to keep in mind between these, and the biggest development that has happened in the last few months actually, and especially in 2020, is that checkering jailbreak. The iPhone X is compatible with that checkering jailbreak. However, the iPhone XR is not compatible with that. However, with that being said, there is a new uncovered jailbreak coming out for A12 and A13 devices. The iPhone XR is included with that, and it should be compatible with it for sure. So what that basically means is that for that jailbreak, you will actually be able to jailbreak that device, but I don't think it's going to be the same type of jailbreak as the iPhone XR jailbreak was, because that was a whole nother level. I truly do believe that the iPhone X has the better advantage with that unpatchable checkring jailbreak. So the iPhone X definitely has the better advantage with that checkring jailbreak, but it's pretty close, I'm not going to lie. But if I had to say it, I truly do believe the iPhone X will have the better advantage right now, but that doesn't mean the iPhone XR can't randomly, have a jailbreak come out next month or 2 months. But as of right now, that's kind of my opinion on it. Now moving on to the performance side of things, this is probably one of the most boring aspects of both phones because they're both really, really good performing phones. The iPhone X has the Apple A11 Bionic chip, a hexa-core CPU, and 2 different models, a 64 and 256 gig models with 3 gigabytes of RAM each. With the iPhone XR has the Apple A12 Bionic chip, a hexa-core CPU, and 3 different models, a 64, 128, and 256 gigabyte models, and all 3 of those models have 3 gigabytes of RAM. Now both phones are still really good performing phones in my opinion. I feel like none of them really feel way faster than the other one. Maybe the iPhone XR is the faster one by a little bit just because of that newer chipset and lower resolution display, but in terms of everyday use, I don't think you're going to find yourself thinking one is way faster than the other. If you were to use one in a day and use the other one every day, I don't think you're going to notice that big of a difference if I'm being honest. What I will tell you though is that performance wise, even compared to the newest iPhones, there's very little difference, and I say very little because I was expecting more. There is a bit of difference, but it's not as big as you might think. The iPhone X with that smaller screen size, I just feel like I can just touch every corner of the display, and I really do like that, even though that has nothing to do with the performance. It just kind of adds to the experience of the phone, and every time I click something, every time I do anything with it, it feels just as fast as my 11 Pro. When I switched from my iPhone X to my 11 Pro, I didn't even notice that big of an increase in performance, even though there was. I didn't really see that on a day-to-day basis, and my iPhone XR is more or less the same, and I do believe that the iPhone XR is the faster phone between both of them. And if you're planning on getting a phone between them and you're trying to base it on performance, I don't think you're going to notice a crazy difference between both of them, but I truly do believe that the iPhone XR might actually do you better in the long run. So that kind of covers it up in terms of performance. Not much more to hit on there. Now hitting on the cameras, this is where the biggest difference probably lies in terms of just the camera sensors. The iPhone X has 2 12 megapixel sensors, a wide angle lens and a telephoto lens, where the iPhone XR has a 12 megapixel sensor, a single 12 megapixel sensor at that. They both have 7 megapixel cameras at the front, but with that back camera, like I've stated before, if you're in 2020, which we are all right now, the minimum camera sensors I would recommend is a single camera setup. And the reason I say that is because we have so many phones coming out right now that have multiple camera sensors. We have 5, 6, 7 camera sensors in a phone now, including the S20 Ultra. Look at that phone, that phone's crazy. And if you don't have that many camera hardware features, you're going to kind of be outsetting yourself and making yourself having an older phone than you really need to, in my opinion. And that's one of the biggest problems right now. The quality of the iPhone XR camera is great, but it doesn't have that telephoto lens or an ultra-wide sensor or both that some of the newer phones have, and between both of them, they both can shoot 4K at 60, so that's really nice, 1080p at 240, but between both, I would still probably recommend the iPhone X's camera. The iPhone XR's camera is great, it's great quality and everything, but it's just lacking out on those really, really important hardware features like the telephoto lens or the ultra-wide sensor, so that kind of covers it up there. Now ending it off with the battery life, this is probably the biggest difference between both of them, setting with the iPhone XR. The iPhone X had a 2,716 mAh battery, the iPhone XR had a 2,942 mAh battery, and definitely between them, it's funny because a lot of people say that the iPhone X had a better battery life, but that is not accurate at all. The iPhone XR definitely had the better battery life between both phones. It is a bigger phone, so people might have assumed it was had worse battery life because of more power to the screen or whatever. Not the case. It was a lower resolution display. It was an IPS panel versus the iPhone X's 1125p panel. So that one for sure didn't do as good as the iPhone XR. So the iPhone XR definitely has a better battery life between them. And the iPhone XR actually has some of the best battery life I've seen on any phone. Whenever I pick this phone up, it usually has a little bit of juice on it, and I usually charge it for a day for me to use it, and then I just forget about it for 2 weeks, and I'll come back to it and it still has charge, which is really cool. So in terms of the battery life, I'm definitely siding with the iPhone XR. Now to kind of sum up the video and to answer the question, which one should you pick up in 2020? I'll say if you're thinking about longevity and you don't really care about having the latest and greatest and this and that, I think the iPhone X might be the better way to go. You're getting, a lot of features for not a lot of price. It is a little bit cheaper than the iPhone XR, and it's still kind of competitive and comparable to my iPhone 11 Pro, which I've compared it to already, but they're very, very close, and I truly do believe believe that the iPhone 10 might be the better way to go for the time being. But if you're thinking about, when you want the best battery life, you don't really care about camera that much and things like that, the iPhone 10R might be a better way to go for you. So that really pretty much covers it up there. If you guys have any questions or anything, leave it down in the comment section below. Hit that like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it would mean so much if you guys could hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel, all those links are linked down below. I'd really appreciate it if you guys could check it out. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.